SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show, with hundreds of events listed, live concerts, sporting events, and so much more. Go on to SeatGeek.com, enter promo code Snake Sports Talk Show, and save yourself $20 off your first purchase.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are live on a Wednesday here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thank you so much for making us a part of your evening here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell button for all latest notifications. We are live all over in the Vegas Valley and beyond. iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram. That is where you can like, follow, and subscribe. So much NFL coverage. We got a lot to talk about. We're recapping week one and what we found out here on the show. And also prime predictions late, of course, on the next hour as well. We got so much to cover with you, but Taylor Glauska joining us here. Boy, we've had an exciting yet kind of an interesting weekend all the same, but I'm super excited for what week two is going to bring, but there is so much coverage, Taylor, that we really have to discuss, but I'm super excited for what, this upcoming week is literally going to look like. So, we might have a little bit of trouble there. Let's see if we can get him up here. There we go. I think we definitely. There you go.
We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but I am super excited to go over week one and all of our exciting topics here today.
Oh, yeah. So I'll start with this because, of course, over the course of the week, by the way, it was a bittersweet win for the New York Jets on Monday night. And the thing about it is that what we've discussed and what we saw is that, first of all, I definitely called a little bit of this to where it was going to be interesting. But I thought that the Bills were going to obviously pull this off. Apparently, I was wrong, and this was kind of the outcome. But I will say this about the Jets. Pump your brakes a little bit, guys, on the reactions. Because, first of all, I know with Aaron Rodgers being hurt, definitely takes a toll on the team. Okay, but here's what I've really looked at with the Jets and the Bills. First of all, you saw Robert Saleh's imprints all on this defense and especially up on special teams. Clearly, he can coach. Okay, he can coach. All these coaches that we saw all throughout the weekend. Now, I know it was week one, and we can't really get a whole head of ourselves. But the thing that I will say about what the New York Jets ended up bringing up to the table is because, first of all, Robert Saleh is very smart, but he's also very invested. It is kind of hard, kind of highly unfortunate because of the fact of he's without his star quarterback. But are we to blame Robert Saleh? What we know is, first of all, we were concerned about that offensive line before the season started. Mekhi Becton clearly shifted from one side to the other, so they're missing a hole at the offensive line. We knew that was easily, just like it was easy to spot out. We know that it was going to easily be a problem. Everybody knew that from the get-go. That was how things were going to basically be played out, and in the end, he only lasted for about a few plays. And Aaron Rodgers gets carted off, ruptures the Achilles. This is what's going to be hard about Aaron Rodgers because that Achilles injury is very, very hard to really come back from. I know it's difficult. But at least the sweet thing is the Jets defense was absolutely shut down against Josh Allen. Josh Allen couldn't even throw single passes that were at the very least smart because all he had was Stephon Diggs. Couldn't really throw to anybody else. Felt like the Bills were playing a little bit conservative, then whatnot. But I thought the Jets defense was absolutely exceptional. The special teams, by the way, getting it done late in the game. And I thought that was exactly the bittersweet ending that the Jets fans wanted. Now, here's some news moving forward. I know how a lot of you feel about Zach Wilson. So do I. My thing about that is that we know the Jets knows, Zach Wilson to a certain extent where it's not going to be pretty, not going to be that easy. And for some, probably would be a little concerning. But in the end, they do have a quarterback who obviously shadowed Aaron Rodgers all throughout the preseason. Maybe he ended up taking up some stuff. Maybe he finally took some notes. Who knows? Zach Wilson didn't really look that great either. He kind of looked a little bit rusty, and people are already up on social media trying to figure out quarterback replacements. Okay? They are not giving a call to Colin Kaepernick. Okay? They're certainly not calling back Joe Flacco. It's questionable whether or not if Carson Wentz really does get another shot. And they are certainly not going to end up going with Tom Brady. So let's stop with the social media reactions. It's not going to happen. And let's focus on what are the good things that the Jets can do. Now, we know that they can get a quarterback replacement, but nothing to the extent of where it just kind of sounds a little bit ridiculous. Okay, let's be realistic. Zach Wilson, as you and I both know, probably pays attention to social media. And he probably saw a lot of these overreactions of they need a quarterback. Where's there going to be our replacement? Pump the brakes a little bit. I know how a lot of you feel about Zach Wilson. So do I. But you know what? He doesn't have to end up doing too much. He's learned from Aaron Rodgers, hopefully. And maybe with Aaron, even if he's sidelined and he's hurt, he can end up coaching him, giving a few tips or whatnot. Ain't that why he came to the Jets? He got along with a lot of these young guys. He got along with Garrett Wilson. Felt a lot like a gut punch to him. But the point that I'm trying to make is there are some positives to this for the Jets than there are of some negatives. I know 75%, if Aaron Rodgers was healthy, they would have had a viable chance of making the playoffs. And then it dipped down the second he got hit with a season-ending injury. But all I can say is that if Zach Wilson is the quarterback, you hope he learned a lot of things up in camp, and you better hope that there are some things that the Jets know that they could take away from this injury. Again, I'm hoping Aaron Rodgers does come back well. The Achilles injury, and especially at 40 years old, it's not that easy to come back from. Your body ages. It doesn't end up healing very right. Doesn't heal faster than usually when you're younger. So all my many hopes to Aaron Rodgers that he ends up healing quickly. But I just thought that in the end, this overreaction thing with Zach Wilson, I just think it was just kind of a little bit overreacting in social media, but we're so used to that. All right. So here's what I will tell you. So first of all, I've seen a lot of coaching truths in week one. Okay. I know it's early. I know people are kind of like, Jake, why are we, why are you having at least a reaction, at least in week one? Here's the thing. Okay. Here's what I will tell you. There was an awful lot of coaching realizations. Okay. We even saw quarterback realizations. It's not to say that they can't be fixed. They can. But I thought over the weekend, there was an awful lot of games that I thought had some coaching mismatches. Okay. Brian Daboll and the Giants, their embarrassment against the Cowboys at home, they're not going to look like that again. But I know that with Daniel Jones, he got the hefty contract and certainly did not look the same in week one. That happens to a lot of quarterbacks. Don't kid yourselves. Okay. Big thing that I will say, Brian Daboll is a very smart head coach. Okay, we don't know really if he has the right quarterback. Clearly, it didn't look like that. But we know that their wide receiver room is thin. That's fixable. Maybe, but unless if they actually do end up getting wide receiver talent or they end up addressing that at some point because they're very thin at the position. So I don't know how they're planning to fix it. Um, by the way, I also thought Dan Campbell on Thursday night looked a lot better, but yet he does have Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator. So it saves him a little bit of the sake to where he can basically run that defense. Aiden Hutchinson clearly looks like the star pass rusher. Detroit looks interesting. That's why I thought they could possibly run with the North Division. Um, by the way, Mike McDaniel is clearly very much clever. Very clever. My thought about that is that I think Tua, for some of his limitations, and we know for some of his health concerns, he looked great. He's not going to look like that again when he has to face a division rival in New England. Because we know Bill Belichick's track record is that he feasts all over young quarterbacks. They don't end up playing well. That's why I think Tua, he'll play decent, but he's not going to have a game like that he had in week 1 against the Chargers secondary. But the point of it with the Chargers, and I'll get to that too later on in the show, is that Brandon Staley's defense looked stale. That whole secondary, J.C. Jackson, everybody else, they did not play well. They had no answer at all on defense, which is why Tyreek Hill looked like a superstar, and which is why Tua threw for over almost 500 yards. You can't have that happen again. You can't. You're facing on the road against Tennessee, and if Ryan Tannehill comes away with that, I don't know if Brandon Staley can coach. I have very much a lot of questions, but that was clearly a coaching mismatch. Listen, okay, in a lot of things that we look at, especially in real life and even in business, we know that there's parts where there's accountability all around, and that's where we really have to get to the bottom of each of those. Okay, do we have the right employee or do we have the right manager to at least manage these places? Because again, you could turn around and say, well, we have the quarterback, we just don't have the right head coach. I mean, look at for instance, how long is Sean McDermott really going to end up lasting in Buffalo as a defensive coach? Josh Allen clearly didn't end up looking like himself on Monday night, and he misses Brian Daboll. It clearly shows. He had a lot of interceptions last year, and he's thrown a couple of bonehead mistakes on Monday night. Josh Allen clearly doesn't look like the same quarterback, but that's because his offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, got the head coaching job. Now, I'm not to say Ken Dorsey's terrible at offensive coordinating, but I do think there's times where they're going to have to end up revamping and really reshaping this and get themselves back to par. But I mean, look at it this way. You got Justin Herbert as the best quarterback in this league, and he upgraded with Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator. But since Brandon Staley's been there, the defense has been 4th worst in a bunch of categories. Not to mention, they were the 6th worst. Like, they were the 4th worst in points, like in defensive points, since he's arrived. They haven't figured that out. I don't know if they figured out the run defense. I got to see that against Tennessee. And you're facing off against Derrick Henry, which is going to be quite the mismatch. It'll be very hard to contain him. You may have the head coach, you just may not have the right quarterback. Brian Daboll in New York. They didn't score a single point against Dallas when Micah Parsons was feasting all over that offensive line and just rushed up and roughed up Daniel Jones. And they have a very thin wide receiving core. Brian Daboll's a smart coach. They'll rebound this weekend. I know that for a fact. But Daniel Jones, he has another performance like that. You clearly know he's just about an average quarterback. That's really all you have to look at. Kevin Stefanski, I think, is a real good head coach. And they really, really roughed up on defense, which is what made sense as to why Joe Burrow didn't end up playing as well. But all I know is that you got to have the right match of head coach and quarterback. Okay, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, that is there to stay until Andy Reid hangs it up. Because Patrick Mahomes isn't going to go anywhere anytime soon. But that is beautiful harmony. John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. You utilize a lot of Lamar's strengths. John Harbaugh, who's a special teams coach, worked really well in special teams. That's why Justin Tucker's great every year. And then you also got a really good defense that knows how to play situational football. That's how they are. Now, the run might be hard because J.K. Dobbins is out for the year. But either way, you got to have the right harmonies for coaching and for quarterbacks. It's much like you do in businesses where you got to have the right employees that will make the business run like a well-oiled machine, and you got to have the right manager who oversees and ensures or assures that the business is running greatly. Which is why even when you look at a lot of these franchises, either they have the right quarterback or they have the right head coach. But it is a beautiful thing when they have both meshed together. Yeah, Taylor, I mean, over the weekend, I know it's week 1, but my thing is that coaching mismatches is a real thing. And when people started reacting a little bit more to like certain stuff, there's parts of it, it's a real reaction. And then there's parts of it, like what we saw with the Jets, which was a little bit of an overreaction because Aaron Rodgers is hurt, right? So that's the part that is hard. But Taylor, I got to be honest. I mean, there's coaches that we saw that were spectacular. Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, I saw their identities were all over the last weekend. And then I saw they've got the right coach, but not the right quarterback, Brian Daboll. I don't know if Daniel Jones is the answer. And then you have the right quarterback, Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow. I don't know. I'm giving Zach Taylor at least another year up on this, but I got to be honest, man. I've heard way too much of just scripted, like, just scripted stuff you got to tell the press from Brandon Staley. But I'm not seeing the result on defense, which is why it's hard for me to believe this stuff. But like I said, I think I just saw a lot of truths and realities, even in it just being in week 1. But we saw this from a year or two ago.
Absolutely. And, with Staley in particular, there's one thing that we know, and it's that he has a lot of excuses. But we may look back at this game, this week 1 game where they put up 34 points and still came up short.
Yeah.
We may look back at it in a month and realize that Miami beats every team that they play for the next month by 2 touchdowns because that offense is extremely special. So while Staley should have, I don't know, benched J.C. Jackson in the first quarter rather than letting him get toasted the entire game, I think we'll see that the outcome of that game was a lot better than a lot of teams will actually be able to do compared to the Chargers.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And to be honest, man, this is what I've said to everybody. This is Kenneth Murray's year to prove it because they didn't pick up his option. So which means he's got to play hard. And I know all I saw was Eric Kendricks all that weekend. Now I know they have a rookie, Diane Henley, which hopefully he's good to go because I'd like to see him play. But still, this is your 3rd year. The defense hasn't been figured out. I mean, 4th worst scoring defense. And then on top of it, you're the 6th worst when it comes to like certain categories. Like enough is enough after a while. And you were supposed to be the coordinating protege.
You're supposed to be the guru.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like, look, this is not Princeton. This is not like, these Ivy League schools where like, we just depended on your smarts. No, there's certain things that aren't taught in books. That's taught instinctively. That's why I look at Kyle Shanahan. I look at Mike McDaniel. I look at, hell, even this weekend, I watched Robert Saleh with his identity all over that defense and
That
that
was a
special teams.
great
It was
defensive
great
performance.
coaching. Oh
Fantastic.
my God. Like, even if the offense took a tear at quarterback, I still got a really good defense that shut down Josh Allen. Like, you can
Yeah,
tell.
that defense was stellar. It's going to continue to be stellar. And it just goes to show you that when you get the right coach with the right personnel, things can really click. That is a very good defense. Guess what? The Chargers have an extremely high paid defense, and they got 34 or 36 points put up on them this weekend. Something's going wrong. And just so you know how I feel about the situation is Kellen Moore is right there, and well, his offense looked really good. I'm
Yep.
just saying, you get a few more bad weeks or a couple more bad beats, you can see Kellen Moore slipping into that head coach position to be an interim coach.
Yeah, no, I totally agree for sure. And hopefully, like I said, and maybe that's what it's pushing towards because we know how Dean Spanos is. We know that it definitely works that way. But we'll figure that out by the time we get into week 2. All right, folks. Well, of course, I'm telling you right now, sales have been really, really good so far with our good partners at Muscle Tech. They've got packed with really good natural ingredients for you guys to get in the best shape of your life. Whether it's supplements, whether it's protein powders, or whether it's just natural recovery for your bodies to shape up, Muscle Tech has it all. Muscle Tech, scientifically proven and natural, well-known ingredients to help you get in the best shape that you can be, whether it's that dream beach bod you've always been striving to have, or maybe it's getting yourself up in shape, changing your dietary, and living the healthy life. Whatever your journey goal may be, Muscle Tech is there to help you. When you go online and when you shop before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself the discounts for all of your products as a way of saying thank you for using us as your product supplement provider. Muscle Tech has it all from there. Clinically proven, scientifically proven to give you the best results possible. Go online, muscletech.com, promo code SNAKESPORTS for the discount. That is muscletech.com, promo code SNAKESPORTS.
Key Williams and Dante Criswell star in 7200 Seconds podcast Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Want to know how exactly I ended up getting this custom-made jersey and so much more? Head over to spansidea.com. We got hundreds of thousands of different ideas for your custom jersey, whether it's baseball, football, hockey, or basketball, or whatever you're feeling. Go to fansidea.com. Enter promo code SNAKESPORTS, of course, for your discount on all of your apparel products as well. Get geared up. Custom-made jerseys just like this. Fansidea.com, promo code SNAKESPORTS. I'm really happy with this jersey. This thing came out super, super clean. By the way, best pricing. I didn't even have to play games on this. But, so I was thinking about this over the break. So, kind of what I wanted to revert to on Monday night. Because, first of all, like I said, we saw a lot of coaching truths. We saw an awful lot of, quarterback truths at the same time. One thing that I will point out, I love Josh Allen. I do. I think he's a real good quarterback, and he's a really good kid. There's a lot of high hopes for him. The difference of him Monday night, it felt like the Bills played very conservative. It didn't seem like it was wild. It was like, home run swings, or did it feel like that there was, any pop or any power? My thing with this is that I think to some degree, Josh Allen clearly misses Brian Daboll. I mean, it's written all over the wall. There's no way of avoiding it. Josh Allen, since Brian Daboll had been his offensive coordinator, okay, with him, his numbers were outstanding. All it took was for him to learn from his rookie year and probably from his second year to finally get it. Okay, Brian Daboll takes a head coaching job in New York where he's with Daniel Jones. Then next thing you know, last year he had more picks under Ken Dorsey. And then Monday night, he ended up having a couple picks in that game as well. Clearly, Josh Allen didn't look buttoned up. Neither did his skill look a little bit more refined. I say this all the time that coaching is so important in this league, whether it's a head coach, whether it's a coordinator. Either one of those, they're very important to the likely degree. But the thing that I saw from the Bills is that, again, I do like Sean McDermott, but how long are we really going to end up lasting with this until all of a sudden, McDermott may not be the answer, or maybe it's, Ken Dorsey. I think Buffalo, though, they do love Sean McDermott because of what he stands for. And then at the same time, what he's truthfully been known to do well, which is why that I think that the relationship between the two probably won't break away as easily. But the very, very least you could do is giving Josh Allen much more creative production. I mean, that's why the Chargers ended up getting Kellen Moore, because they realized that Joe Lombardi was not the answer. Played too many dink and dunks, not enough home run swings, not enough to where you trust your franchise quarterback. Brian Daboll had been around in the league for a very long time and developed quarterbacks over time. That's why he was so good at his job. That's why he was offered the coaching job. Could you blame him? My thing about this is the Bills, I do believe, will recover. The teams that got embarrassed over the weekend, that's why I picked a lot of them. I picked a couple of them because I do think there are some that they may have lost, but at the same time, they didn't really lose as badly, which is why that I think to some degree, I think from that point on, the Bills are going to be fine. They probably won't be as big as how Miami is, because Miami, they played situational football. But I've looked at a lot of these teams that even if they lost, like the Giants lost badly, the Bills got embarrassed, the Chargers got embarrassed. There were a couple teams that got embarrassed because they know that they can play much better than what the result was. Even the Bengals, they got embarrassed. But the best thing that I could definitely say for that is because there's a couple of picks of mine that I think they'll definitely recover. And usually by the next week, teams that get embarrassed, they usually do. I'm not worried about this with the Bills. I'm not worried about potentially, is Sean McDermott really the right piece? But all I can say is you better hope that if this don't go cleanly, Brian Daboll had every part of that offense to where he shaped it up to where Josh Allen is in his career. It's only up for Josh Allen to face up those adversities and really button himself up and clean up the act for next week. I think he will. Taylor with the news.
This is the Hot Press.
What is up, everybody? Unfortunately, we got some bad news for Aaron Rodgers. He tore his Achilles, ruptured it. Obviously, we all saw it. Very bad news. Honestly, it might be the last snap that we get to see him play because he's just up there, and that's a very bad injury. We also have, in the same vein, J.K. Dobbins with an Achilles tear as well. He is out for the season. He was looking fantastic in that game. It's an absolute shame that he's going to be out of the lineup as well. We've got a slew of injuries on the injury report. We have Anthony Richardson dealing with a knee bruise. He said that he's fine, but Kelsey also said that he was fine. So we'll see if he continues to go. He played great in that game. We have Aaron Jones, who was running on a gigantic, 60-yard run and pulled up with a hamstring issue. We'll see how he fares. And then the last one I've got is Austin Eckler dealing with an ankle injury. He still continued to play through that game, although hobbled. But with Josh Kelly as a backup, the Chargers run game still looks healthy.
Yeah, and this is the part of optimism that I really, really liked from some of these teams, because for those that are facing adversity, like I said, you could tell by the identity by how they face adversity. First of all, the Ravens losing J.K. Dobbins again. Good hell. I loved watching him in college. I thought he was really going to end up being a real good prospect, but the fact is that he's gotten so injured early on in his career that it's really, really hard. Now, again, he could possibly come back from that injury and revamp because he is young and his body really does recover well. But then when you look at somebody like Aaron Rodgers, who's 40, and you rupture your Achilles like that, that's very hard to recover from. But like I said, I don't think all is lost for the Jets. I think that just because this year kind of felt like it was a dud, not to say that, Zach Wilson is terrible in any way, but you saw the reactions after Monday night. They all are looking at who's our quarterback replacement? Who are we possibly going to end up trying? Slow down for a second. You got to think clearly about this because, okay, the only ones that are obvious, they're not going to contact, Colin Kaepernick. They're not going to contact Tom Brady. So let's throw the junk away. I know they've talked about Joe Flacco. They've even mentioned about Carson Wentz. They mentioned up a couple players. There's possibilities of that, but again, the only best hope is that Zach Wilson, he's learned from Aaron Rodgers. If that's the case, maybe that might turn into a positive.
It can look all right.
Yeah, and again, they could win a lot of their games based upon the trust of the defense. All Zach Wilson has to do is just distribute the football because they do have weapons. They do have, by the way, outside of that, Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook really
the run game looked great.
That was great. So again,
absolutely,
you could slide past those games, but that's what I'm saying. Coaching adversity is a big thing. I don't need you to be smart. I don't need you to, have learned a lot of these things over the books. I want you to learn outside the box, think instinctively how you could face off against adversity. And I thought Robert Saleh did a perfect job by that. You lose your star quarterback.
Absolutely.
Defense was great against, Josh Allen. But that's the thing about it.
And during that game, they won that game. Yep. And even though they didn't really have a game plan for Zach Wilson being in the game, yep, because they planned to have Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson got the little dinks and dunks that he got. And guess what? This next week, they're going to have the ability to create a game plan directly for his skills. So hopefully they can keep it going.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I looked at the point spreads for a couple of them. And like I said, I only took one coin flip. I literally, I got past that. And that's where I was like, we were very lucky up on it. But these next ones, Vegas is literally trying to tell us that this is a given. I don't think so. I think sometimes, because again, you and I live here. You know how much, the sports books likes to deceive us. That's why I'm like, it may look so good on paper, but I kind of tend to think a little bit otherwise. But it'll be interesting. But again, hope the best for the Jets. Never wish ill on anybody with that kind of injury. But as far as the history has gone, it's become quarterback purgatory from that point on. The last quarterback who's even started in a lot of their games was Ryan Fitzpatrick in 2015. That's it. They have gone through so many of these, and it's so hard to end up keeping that one quarterback up on that field.
They're cursed on the QB side of things. It's been like a decade since they've had somebody that has really been good, and even before that, it wasn't great. So
100%. But I do think Austin Eckler is going to be fine. I first of all, I thought that run game was great. I thought between both him and Josh Kelly, that was the same implement that I know Kellen Moore was instilling in Dallas, even with a slow Ezekiel Elliott. Like Tony Pollard was clearly, he was clearly like, a home run swing from there. But the fact that I got two running backs that past weekend, again, what I take from the loss is that it was an ugly ending for one, and then it was ugly throughout the game, but then got uglier in the end. But the positive notes that I got from it was that the rushing was great. So offensively, I can be optimistic. But it's like I'm tired of the same story every single time about this stuff, about what makes Brandon Staley that great. That defense looked stale last week.
It was bad.
Oh, my God. It was like, this is one of the reasons why, even when we all, again, if you looked at it, the Chargers had scored 92 points. 92. All three of those, they've been 0-3. So it's not the offense being the problem. That's all defense. And you spent the most money on defense. Good God. This is horrible from that point on.
Yeah, it leaves a lot to be desired. Unfortunately, this is the hand that we're dealt until the Chargers decide to either move on from Brandon Staley or hire a defensive coordinator that takes over the entire reins of that operation. It's just going to continue being this, inconceivable defense. It just can't stop anything.
Yeah, and there's going to be more to it that we'll talk about right after the news. But are we caught up, or is there maybe a couple?
We are all caught up.
All right, Taylor with the news.
This is the Hot Press.
All right, so I want to bring something up, and Taylor can definitely join up on me with this one. But like I talked about with the Chargers deal, okay. First of all, like I tell a lot of people, usually because the show, the way it's based upon is both Taylor and I don't usually show our fandoms, but personally, we both are fans of the same team. But here's the thing that you got to understand about the history is Dean Spanos, for the longest time, doesn't like to spend over $15 million on a head coach. Okay, that's truth and reality, and that's facts. Look at a lot of the coaching histories that they have had. Okay, I understand that a defensive coach gave them a different perspective, Marty Schottenheimer, but he was already great at what he did by the time he was in Kansas City. When he came to the Chargers, yes, defensively, it showed. Sean Merriman, Igor Olshansky, Jamal Williams, and then you had a really good Quentin Jammer and a Drayton Florence, and hell, even Eric Weddle came upon this
Oh
defense.
yeah.
It was a great defense. But that's the difference when you watch even a defensive coach like we watched with Robert Saleh. He left all of his imprints on that defense because he's a defensive coach. You saw how a lot of coaches, they change the culture, they're passionate, and they work. Mike McDaniel coming from a Kyle Shanahan tree. That was all Mike McDaniel all throughout that weekend. That's with the Tua, who we know is limited. Now, Tua this week, he's not going to get almost close to over 500 passing yards. Not this week when you got a division rival in New England. That's not going to happen. But you will make it to a point where, first of all, like I said, I like Vic Fangio because he's situational. He played really, really good. Even if the defense gave up 34 points, he played situationally when it mattered. And that's where a lot of times when you see coaches, if they don't shake things up for the sake of the team in situational play, then that's where you lose a lot of your games. Okay, the Giants was different because, first of all, Brian Daboll's smart, but it was not Daniel Jones's night. And the wide receiver room was very thin. So, as I'm saying for the Chargers deal, okay, we have seen this defense in the last couple seasons. They have not improved. Okay, they were the 4th worst scoring defense in the league. They were also 6th worst when it came to certain categories, when it came to yards given up, whether it was on the ground or whether it was, some parts of it that was passing. And they were terrible at third downs. 3rd and 10,
oh yeah, they
3rd and
lit up
12.
conversions all
What
the time.
the hell are they doing? You're letting the opposing offenses convert on that? I don't think so. Like, it's one thing to kind of shake off a 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2, but it's another when you're letting them convert 3rd and 10 and 3rd and 12. And here's the other thing. J.C. Jackson's interception. Why did you not just step? Why did you not just steal at the end zone? You would have gotten
boneheaded. It
5
was so
yards.
boneheaded.
Oh God.
Boneheaded, and not only that, but is that a coaching? Is that coaching, or is that the player trying to make more out of the situation? For me, I kind of feel it's both. Yeah, it's both. Exactly. Yep.
It's totally both, because here's the thing. Brandon Staley, for as much as he tries to talk optimism, that clearly did not look like there was any changes. And then J.C. Jackson, first of all, why would you shove a player late in the first half?
No time left.
Yeah, no time left. And let them get 3 easy points to let them get the momentum in the locker room.
There was 3 players around him.
Oh, God.
There was 3 players.
3
and
of
he pushed him for no reason. It
By the
killed
way,
me. That play killed me.
Oh, God. And by the way, there was no Terran Armstead on that offensive line.
And we got zero pressure.
Zero. Not even one. Tua looked untouchable.
Yeah. I don't know what that's about. Like, maybe it's because Joey Bosa, that's his first game back from, it's like a season-long thing. But Khalil Mack, we pay him a lot of money. Why did you not get something? Tua's not untackled. He could be tackled. He's not super elusive, and we didn't even get kind of pressure on him.
Yeah, and so here's where I kind of evaluate this, because like I said, beginning up onto the show, there were coaches that played very well. They don't have the quarterback. Brian Daboll doesn't know, we don't know if Daniel Jones is really truthfully the future. He may not be, but it's as I said last week. You watched all those college quarterbacks over the weekend. There's 8 or 9 of them that can come out of college and that I could totally see them be NFL products. By the way, how about Quinn Ewers against Alabama? He looked much, much better.
Absolutely.
He looked better. And but that's why I said people who don't think coaching makes a huge difference. Yes, it does. But that's why Quinn Ewers got better. I mean, last year, the kid was walking around like he was Morgan Wallen, didn't really have a care in the world, got bigger, and was this dangerous Brett Favre gunslinging quarterback. And then all of a sudden, coaching changed a little bit. Steve Sarkisian looked a lot better. He got a haircut. and he looked much more buttoned up. But that makes a difference, which is
It
why,
does. It absolutely does.
yeah, and so I think with Brian Daboll, he probably may end up looking at other quarterbacks because, again, I just think that last week. Now, this week, they'll probably rebound because they're not going to be embarrassed. And Brian Daboll's not going to allow that. And now you may have the right quarterback, Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, and not have the right head coach. But again, I'm giving a little bit of a hall pass for Zach Taylor because I think that if he rebounds this next week, then I have a little of some optimism there. But Brandon
They've also
Staley,
been to the Super Bowl recently. So,
yes, yeah.
you know.
And again, and here's the other thing. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, they have some real good weapons around them. And Joe Mixon just took a pay cut to make sure that this team was going to be staying intact. So there's optimism there. But when I look at the Chargers with Brandon Staley, it's like, I don't know. I don't know really what to think with this. But I will say this. If this really doesn't work right, Kellen Moore clearly was not a problem. People thought in Dallas, his play calling as an offensive coordinator wasn't really what was matching up. By the way, if you're thinking that in Dallas, that they're going to put up 40 points again this next week, oh, you're out of your gourd. They're not going to do that. By the way, Brian Schottenheimer, if you watched his offense, they looked more conservative than creative. I think the part of that is because it was a clear coaching mismatch. I think ultimately the adjustments in offense was not right for the Giants. Their wide receiver core was thin, so they didn't have anybody outside of Darren Waller that they could trust. And then, but again, Kellen Moore knew how to play the home run swings. Look at a lot of those plays that Justin Herbert was making. That was clearly Kellen Moore. He's not the problem. Offensively, since Justin Herbert has been in this league, he has led amongst young quarterbacks in 3 seasons in touchdowns, in quarterback rating, and and again, I think also too his elusiveness. So clearly offense is not the problem. But I think that if in fact, because we know how cheap Dean Spanos is, this doesn't work out with Brandon Staley, which we may lean towards that. Maybe there is a good chance Kellen Moore, offensive-minded, clearly worked this offense. So if he gets the head coaching job, the only thing he can do is bring the next potential prospect as an offensive coordinator and then maybe work a little smarter on defense. Because I had no track record of Derek Ansley. I have no track record.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, that was just such a questionable thing, which is why I pushed for go get Vic Fangio. I don't care what it costs, but I know he's situationally smart. I know he can push this defense because that has been your problem, is defense.
I think the issue is that Brandon Staley thinks that he can turn this defense around. Guess what? You have all the weapons that you need. You have that is such an overpaid defense for what the product is on the field. Yep. It is a Brandon Staley issue. I think if I could just say this, JC Jackson has looked really bad. He looked really bad last year. He looked bad in this game. Yeah. I feel like Brandon Staley doesn't want to bench him because he is a super high paid player. Yep. And so he doesn't want to be the coach that's benching a supposed superstar. However, sometimes you just have to do it. If J.C. Jackson was benched in that and you had Michael Davis covering Tyreek Hill or like some sort of double coverage, it probably works a lot better than putting J.C. Jackson, a person that just returned from a kneecap being exploded.
Yep.
If you don't put him one-on-one with Tyreek Hill, the fastest player in the league,
yep,
maybe we don't let them score as many times. Like it's 100%. Insane.
And here's the thing. Michael Davis stepped up in that game. I mean, he had a couple spurts where he was playing well. He knocked a lot of balls away, and he was also forcing a lot of that pressure to the wide receivers. So it's like he played well. J.C. Jackson had a dud. And then again, we're looking at the emergence of Asante Samuel Jr. as well. So there is times of adjustments. But the problem is You just don't have the right game manager. I mean, think about it. You go for a 4th down on your own 16. Okay, you call the time like you go for a extra point after you just scored, and you let the opposing defense get in their own heads and they're in their emotion, and you don't go for the kill. Like there's been several tracks that Brandon Staley has left that I'm just like, look, I'm done talking. Enough of the talk. You need to start adjusting. You need to get better at game management. You need to get better at handling your players, because clearly Joey Bosa throwing his helmet twice in the postseason, and you just give him back the helmet. You don't scream in his face. That just clearly shows. Look, there's guys that can. I've got people that can be so smart at calculus. When I ask them of what happens when adversity is thrown in your face and you're dealing with all these pressures, you got your manager screaming in your face. How do you overcome that? You don't just go back to the books and thinking, because there is no equation for it. There's a difference between analytics and manalytics. In manalytics, you really have to show the best part of you. But that's why some of us, we kind of get a little bit, sidetracked from some of this stuff. But I just think that this is what it's leaning towards. It's an offensive-centric league. That's why I'm like, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are perfect harmony. Mike McDaniel clearly works with this, whether he does have to or he doesn't. It worked for Brian Daboll when he has Daniel Jones. He's going to end up giving him half that portion of that contract that he just signed. So there's possibilities for that, but it's lean towards offense. But you know what a lot of these offensive coaches have done? They've gotten great at defense. I know it doesn't look right with Kansas City with Steve Spagnuolo and that defense, but still, they're great situationally. But
absolutely, they know how to cause turnovers when they need it.
Oh yeah, and then again, we just saw this with Mike McDaniel when he hired Vic Fangio. Like, clearly they know they're defensive coordinators, but it's around the tree you are in. That's why, you got to be better than that.
The when you say situational, I can't think of more situational than when Vic Fangio didn't blitz practically all game, and then they have a minute 30 left, and he sends it twice at him, just an all-out blitz, and gets to him 2 times. It gets to Herbert twice. He almost didn't blitz all game, and perfect situational football, and I just wish that we could say the same.
Yeah. Well, so with Taylor and I, what we're going to end up doing, this is obviously going to be a segment that we will usually do on Tuesdays. We know we're kind of cutting it close with a Wednesday because obviously plans up on Tuesday kind of changed a little bit up, but we are back next week up on that. But what we do on closing segments, since the week gets closed after Mondays, we usually do a thing where we sum up these games however it comes to mind, because I do think you can sum up the game very, very simple. So with that, we do our week 1 recaps. So much like we do our prime predictions. So we're going to have our game recaps from here. All right. Thursday night, Lions Chiefs. Lions conquer kingdom. The thing about this is, look, Ben Johnson was really, really good at situational offensive plays, which is clearly why, and this is not on Jared Goff's good week, but how about Jahmyr Gibbs, man? I think that kid ran beautifully. A lot of
those bounce-offs were just beautiful.
And here's the thing. People thought he was too high of a pick. I'm starting to think maybe there was a reason why Dan Campbell looked at him, because, again, I think DeAndre Swift was a good piece. He got hurt a lot. Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is going to honestly come out the gate. He's in great shape, which is why between him and Bijan Robinson, I was actually pretty damn good 2 running backs in this draft. I thought, honestly, 2 situational play. The Lions played really, really good on the defensive side because, first of all, the Chiefs were without Travis Kelce and they were without Chris Jones. But still, that defense is young. And they didn't – Kadarius Toney, if it hadn't have been for those 3 bobbled catches, one of them that just so happens to result in an interception, Chiefs would have probably had a different outcome.
Win.
Yeah. They probably would have. So Sunday slates, Panthers, Falcons, grounding and pounding. Man, Bijan Robinson was really, really good up on that. And by the way, Desmond Ridder had some decent throws. I'm not saying he's great, but he had some decent throws. He was playing situationally, which is why we said Arthur Smith, he was going to rebound himself because he needs to make this work. So I thought Bijan Robinson, it clearly looks like he is the guy that Atlanta loves and is everything that. And by the way, Tyler Algier, by the way, too, even scored up some real good points. They look great. They look great on the run. But I will say, they have got to get a little bit better with distribution because I know this was the first week as a full-time starter for Desmond Ridder. Kyle Pitts only had 2 looks, and Drake London didn't really have that much. Maybe next week it translates a little better, but I thought it was pretty good for the Falcons to win up at home.
It was fantastic, and I really enjoyed their run game. And, they ran the ball very fluidly last year. I think it's going to be a heavy dose of Bijan and Tyler Algier for this year as well. They played a good game, and they got the result they wanted.
Yep. Jags, Colts, very rich future. By the way, Anthony Richardson, man, I thought the kid, he's clearly a hit, but this is no surprise. Shane Steichen knows exactly how to work these young quarterbacks. By the way, Jacksonville, Calvin Ridley, we called this before the season started. Calvin Ridley looks really good. Looks like he really worked out over the offseason, even after the suspension. That connection between him and Trevor Lawrence and a second year with Doug Peterson's offense, that Jags team's going to look real good throughout the season. I thought that from both sides, both quarterbacks looked very impressive. Gives me some optimism about the Colts. Again, I don't have to love their owner, but if Shane Steichen can give you the best of Anthony Richardson, the Colts may be a little bit fine. But they got to get better up a little bit on defense and health. And for God's sakes, please give us more wide receivers for this kid. If this is what you're going to look at for 5 years, give him some help, for God's sakes.
Absolutely. And, the Colts were in there. They were in that game for a long time before the Jags took the 10-point lead. Anthony Richardson looked great. I loved him before the season. I love him even more now. He's going to have tons of rushing opportunities, which if you play fantasy is going to be fantastic. And I'm excited to see where they can go. All they have is Michael Pittman right now for him to throw to, but maybe they pick somebody up in the draft.
Yeah, big time. 49ers, Steelers, goal rush steal. Man, Nick Bosa got the bag over just before the weekend. But Brock Purdy is the real deal.
He looked so good.
So good. Here's what I don't get. This is why I went with the Niners, because I didn't understand the hype up of Pittsburgh. First of all, I do like their components, and I do like Kenny Pickett. That offensive line is young. It's going to get better, but clearly the Niners are just unstoppable but here's the thing. They got a discount with Brock Purdy. That's why I think all of this works so well, because I don't need a special quarterback under Kyle Shanahan's system. I just need somebody to distribute it. Brandon Ayuk, by the way, had a really good week, and Christian McCaffrey was running all over the place. So
yeah, no, that whole offensive side of the ball was absolutely disgusting. But their defense just picked up where it left off, because Bosa signed. Everything just comes to fruition when that happens.
Yeah, and like I said, I think from this point forward, I know it's week 1 and we're getting overexcited, but San Francisco this year, because like I said, the Eagles took a step back. They're still winning, but they're not going to be the same team as they were last year. The Niners have all the components. And by the way, Steve Wilkes as a DC, even without Robert Saleh and without DeMeco Ryans, they just
looked fine.
It's fine. They know how to pick their defense. Cardinals, Commanders, Owl in command. There was a bit of this game. It was a game, but I don't think it was pretty. But no. I thought that Sam Howell did end up commanding it when it needed to. It wasn't pretty throws. I think he's an unathletic version of Baker Mayfield. I still think there's rooms to improve, but again, I just hope that I don't get a pop gun type offense because I do love Jahan Dotson and I do like Terry McLaurin. But if this is kind of the thing, like I mentioned, with these quarterback factories that the NFC needs to look at, Washington, the good win. You knew it was going to probably be a little bit of a given, but when I saw Arizona come back, I was like, I really wanted those points. But again, good win for Washington. Just couldn't come up with the points fast enough.
It was a lot closer than a lot of people thought it would be. And, you know, the Cardinals, I know they're a bad team, right? We know that right now, and it's unfortunate. But the Commanders, they're young. There's a lot of young talent on that team other than Terry McLaurin, but like Chase Young, Sam Howell, Jahan Dotson, they're all very, very young players. I think as the season goes on, they'll get better and better and better. I still think that they're not going to be a great team, but they'll win those games that they're supposed to win, right? Against the Cardinals, against the Texans, things like that.
100%. Bengals, Browns, Brown and burrowing. So, man, I called this one with Cleveland because I knew Cincinnati. Look, this happens with a lot of quarterbacks. When they get paid the big bucks, they don't look great in the first week. And that's because sometimes that's pressures, or sometimes it was just coaching mismatches, and maybe they didn't work well situationally. Joe Burrow was so roughed up, but here's the thing. He's now, 1-4, 1-5 against Cleveland now in his career.
He just doesn't play well against them.
He doesn't. But here's the thing. Do you really have an answer against Myles Garrett or let alone Zadarius Smith?
That defense is nasty. It's nasty.
It's great. And like I said, Kevin Stefanski can definitely salvage this team. I think the Browns, this is why I said when we did our prediction, the Browns are going to be interesting because Sean Watson's not distracted, but that defense gives me all the hope I need to win those close games. So that's why I thought Cleveland looked really good over the weekend.
They looked fantastic. And, you know, sure, Joe Burrow has a hurt leg right now, but I don't think that had that much to do with how that offense looked, right? Joe Burrow just looked off in general. I don't know if he's super confident with his leg right now. Maybe that's what it is. He also didn't have any time in the preseason. Look, they're going to bounce back. The Bengals are still the Bengals. They're not just going to – this is 1 week, and they're just historically bad against this team for some reason. Yeah. But you're right. The Browns, they're going to be a fun team to watch come playoff time.
Oh, yeah, man. Titans, Saints, save your Saint car. Well, I thought, honestly, like I said before, that's why I went with the points. I thought it was a very good, sweet victory because, again, Derek Carr, even though he's in the NFC, you had an AFC opponent in the first week, some familiarity. But I thought the Saints did really good on both sides. I thought that it didn't look pretty for most parts, with the offense, but defensively, I got what I wanted out of both sides. I knew that Tennessee was not going to back down from a fight. They know how to grind. And I thought that, in the end, Derek Carr made the play when he needed to, and the Saints walk away with a win. Nice win.
Absolutely. I thought that game was way more defensive than I had anticipated. We both picked the Titans in that game for the points. But the Saints, like you said, they did look good. The interesting thing out of this game that I noticed, though, is Derrick Henry was not getting all the carries like he usually does. Sharp stood in there for a good part of the game. So that's going to be interesting if they go ahead and not run Derrick Henry as much as they did in previous seasons, even though that's been the formula for success.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Buccaneers, Vikings, Baker, and Schoolin. So I thought, honestly, Baker Mayfield, okay. I thought he had some pretty good distribution. But by the way, that defense is really, really good. And I thought, again, like what we said about Todd Bowles, very good when it comes to shaping up the defense when they're healthy. As I've said before, prime time games, it's week 1. Kirk, you got to show up, buddy. You can't just end up disappearing up on this. But again, I thought Jordan Addison was really, really good. He got his first touchdown.
He looked nice.
Yeah, and so there's optimism there because the fact that Adam Thielen moved on, but they got a wide receiver. I just don't know if the quarterback is right, but I thought, given the points, defensively, the Buccaneers did some justice against Minnesota.
Absolutely. They look good. I'm excited to see what Baker can do with real weapons. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, guess what Baker likes to do? He likes to throw it far down the field. He's always been good at that one thing in particular. And guess what? He did it in this game with Mike Evans. They looked great. It was a fun game to watch, and we got the outcome that we expected.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Texans, Ravens. Ooh,
That was ugly.
It was ugly. I was like, worth the watch? Question mark.
I guess.
My thing is that Baltimore, it's clearly a new offense with new weapons. The Ravens are going to be fine, but Lamar Jackson, it was a rocky start to him, muffed up the football. And by the way, J.K. Dobbins, he's hurt. There's a couple pieces on that Ravens squad that is hurt. So, again, now I know they were facing a young quarterback and a new head coach in DeMeco Ryans, but even so, John Harbaugh knows how to work his magic with this, but I don't know. I thought that was a little bit of just a question mark, but again, I at least they covered the points. That's all I could really say from there. That was a coin flip. That was one of them.
Yeah, it really was. It was a not great game for the Ravens offense. You can really tell that when Mark Andrews isn't in that lineup, it really affects Lamar for whatever reason. I thought Zay Flowers looked great. He's going to be fun to watch. I think he got like 80 yards. Yep. Kind of wish that the Chargers picked him up, but I think that they will rebound this next week, but it didn't look great for this game.
Yeah, no, not at all. And kind of what it would have been like for this next game. Rams, Seahawks, Smart and Stafford. My thing with, Matt Stafford was that a lie when he literally said that he didn't connect with these young wide receivers? Because I felt like Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell, who the hell are these guys? It looked fine, but here's the other thing too. The Seahawks suffered some injuries late in that game, but they did not look their best. And I thought, my thing is, that's just Sean McVay being smart. Okay, he knows how to play well, and especially, yes, against Pete Carroll, who's defensive. That's not going to happen again for the Seahawks when they go on the road the next time, against the Rams. But I thought they caught him undressed, and Stafford looks pretty good. And that's without Cooper
he looked fine. He looked fine. It was out without Cooper Kupp. Kyron Williams was a nice breath of fresh air compared to Cam Akers. And I thought that Geno did not look good in that game. Like, he just couldn't get anything going, which he has all the weapons in the world, like Jackson Smith, Tyler Lockett, although he got a little concussion knee protocol thing.
Metcalf,
and then DK Metcalf.
A little bit, kind of looked a little bit of a liability there for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an odd game. Didn't expect that one.
Yeah. Packers, Bears, feel the love. How about Jordan Love? But you know what, though? This is not a surprise to me for the Packers, because you know what that tells you is that the Packers are not concerned with, ending the Aaron Rodgers era and having a new quarterback. That just tells you that they have been that smart with offensively. They've been really, really good at offensive line. Defensively, they've been very smart. Rashawn Gary, Rasul Douglas, and Jair Alexander. I'm going to be honest. I don't know how I feel about Justin Fields. I just feel like that the Bears didn't really do him any justice. And by the way, they cut Chase Claypool. I just found that out. And, what do you do? What are you going to do if you're Chicago? They have to update this stuff. They do.
Yeah, I don't feel great about Justin Fields' situation. I think that, maybe Jair Alexander locking down your number one wide receiver the entire game, that does happen in this league. So maybe, going forward, they get some favorable matchups. They put up a little bit more points. But Roschon Johnson was a bright spot for that team. So I don't know, but Jordan Love looked great. I thought I was very impressed by him. Not that the Bears is a hard defense to beat or anything, but he looked great.
By the way, he was the second best quarterback this weekend with less pressures.
Really?
That should tell you that offensive line, they've been top 15. Aaron Rodgers left a top 15 offensive line he's had every year for an offensive line that is just suspect. But
that got him injured in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, and that showed you the truth. The Packers are smart like this. That's why I'm like, okay, Jordan Love learned for 3 years. I can live with that. And then sure enough, he comes out and he makes a performance like this. I'm a little optimistic about Green Bay today.
Yeah, me too. And I think we both in our predictions had them in the hunt or around there. So yeah, I think that they look like a decent team.
Yeah. Raiders, Broncos, raid on, Jimmy. I thought Jimmy G actually looked really good with the Raiders situationally on those plays. And this is what they were trying to clean up. Josh McDaniels really was trying to make this work for the Raiders. People didn't buy into it much, but again, he was comfortable with Jimmy Garoppolo in New England. So clearly it's something works. But look, that offense for Denver looked slow, but I'm not surprised because again, Joe Lombardi's an offensive coordinator for them, and Sean Payton he does not care what exactly it's got to take to get Russell Wilson upbeat. He's trying to change a culture. You know, you're trying to make this team get better. Defensively, I mean, they lowered them to 17 points. This was the best defense in the NFL last year. So it's no surprise to me that the defense still looked the same, but I thought situational play, I don't know where Russell's head was at this whole time.
Yeah, you know, I expected the Raiders to cover here, but I didn't expect Jimmy to look as good as he did. Yep. And, you know, for Sean Payton, you know, we missed out on the opportunity to have him on the Chargers and everything, right? Yep. But the one thing that I'll say is, I don't know, like he's trying to change the culture, but they didn't beat the Raiders, and that's a very winnable game. Yep. So we'll see what happens with them. I will say that that the Raiders, in terms of Jimmy Garoppolo, he played the game that he needed to play. He did what he needed to win. To win, that's just what he does, right? He wins games. He's a great clock manager, and I think that they'll win a solid 5 games this year.
Yeah, I think so too. Dolphins, Chargers. Oh man, running the hill. Tyreek Hill and Tua Tagovailoa. It's a beautiful connection, but that is all Mike McDaniel right there. And I felt like for a lot of those spots, I felt like it was like that like again, I think Miami's offense looks very clever. They also look really, really good situationally on defense because Vic Fangio came up at a time where they needed to, but clearly the defense looks stale from Brandon Staley. I thought it was just, you know, that was just lack of adjustments on defense, but offensively they looked great. They went toe to toe, but again, it was all Tua and it was all Tyreek Hill all throughout that whole game.
Absolutely. The one thing, the one really, really bright spot, and I know we all know this, is the run game for the Chargers, right? Look, Justin Herbert didn't have to throw it that much. Everybody's like, oh, Justin only threw for 200 yards. Guess what? They ran for 250. And I'll take that all day. What that tells me is Kellen Moore is going more for situational football where, hey, what is the defense giving us? Oh, they're giving us 7 yards on the ground per carry. Let's go ahead and take that. I really liked that from Kellen Moore. Hopefully he can keep that up. And you know what? They lost by 2 points. Maybe in the playoffs when they meet again, they don't lose that game next time.
Yeah, no, 100%. Eagles, Patriots, hurts a little. I mean, I thought that, you know, the offensively, defensively, by the way, they had some real good pressures, but I thought offensively they clearly missed Shane Steichen. This is not the same offense we were used to seeing with Jalen Hurts. But again, they walked away with a win. Lucky for that. But this is why that I thought carrying over into next week. I really don't know much to really think of with their offensive coordinator. I don't think is as clever as Steichen was, which is why that I think. But if it does give me W's for the most part, and again, they got that Thursday night against Minnesota at home. So there's parts of that, but there is a little bit of some injuries that could, you know, kind of take a little bit of a change here, especially with where the line is sitting.
Absolutely. And, you know, the Patriots have a good defense. Bill Belichick really knows how to get his team in that right mindset to beat that team, right? But the Eagles were literally, or actually the Patriots were 1 foot away from winning that game. If the feet are dragged, they win that game. So, not that the Eagles played extremely bad, but once they got up to a certain lead, they let off the foot, they let off the gas, and they almost paid for it. So we'll see what goes on from here.
Yeah. Cowboys, Giants, gigantic meltdown. Boy, those boys were feasting all over up on the Giants, 40 points. I don't think that's going to happen again with this Cowboys offense because, honestly, when I looked at them, they played conservatively. They were not really like the best at a lot of spots, but they played a lot of executional football. And the problem is that the Giants, they're thin at wide receiver, didn't work as well. So, again, Cowboys came up with a really good win. And by the way, the Cowboys now, in the last few games and the last few meets against the Giants, they are already 11-1 in the last couple of meetups.
I didn't know it was that bad.
Oh, yeah. They found the Giants' number so bad. But again, that's part of the Giants' dysfunctions. And they got it. I'm sure they're probably going to end up, coming back.
Absolutely. And, I don't know if it was that the Giants' offense was so bad or that the Cowboys' defense is that good. Because the Cowboys' defense, I mean, if they continue to play at that level, they're unstoppable, right? But it just looked like the Giants had turnstiles for offensive linemen, like Micah Parsons and everybody. The entire line was getting back to Daniel Jones, every single drop back. So hopefully the Giants can turn that around, but the Cowboys' defense looks real nice.
Oh, yeah. And finally, Bills, Jets. Hallelujah. Special teams clutch. Man, I thought, the Jets, again, it was very much hurtful for Jet fans, the fact that Aaron Rodgers goes down, but I thought defensively in the special teams, Robert Saleh was great. I thought he made great adjustments. Clearly, Josh Allen misses Brian Daboll as his offensive coordinator. It's nothing against Ken Dorsey. I think he'll work good, but again, he made some mistakes. And even after, the Stephon Diggs touchdown, there was mistakes that we're just kind of like, what are you doing? You don't make mistakes like that. But it clearly showed coordinating was a bit of a change. And that's where I thought, the Jets really took advantage of that in special teams. And at the right time of an overtime, I thought they played pretty good. It was a bittersweet win for the Jets, honestly.
Absolutely. They're going to be sad for a little bit about that losing Aaron Rodgers, but at least they still have a great defense. And on the Bills side of things, it looked like Josh Allen was just trying to fit the ball in pockets that he didn't need to fit it. They had a late drive to tie the game where Stephon Diggs was just catching everything. They found a weakness. They found a chink in the armor. And then the very next drive, the Jets shored up that chink. And guess what? They took him to the cleaners. They took him to overtime and then won. So great, solid defense.
Yeah, no, I couldn't have agreed more. We're going to take at least a little bit of a short break. We're going to be coming back here in just a minute because we do have prime predictions week 2 that's going to be coming up. You don't want to end up missing that. Taking a short break live here in Las Vegas. It's the Snake Sports Talk Show.
Bobby Montagna on the Beantown Breakdown, Saturdays at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, 5:30 Pacific on Sportsway Network.
All right, we're finally back up from break. Had to basically get some cleanups and all the rest of the other stuff all done, but we're finally back up on break. But due to closeness with at least up in time, we're definitely going to end up doing our prime predictions here up onto it to close out the night. I'm excited for these picks, Taylor. I really, really am. I thought week one, so I went 11-5. You went 12-4. But I do think that these picks from here, we got an idea, we got a sense, and I think week two will be a little bit more interesting. There's some dogs that are barking right now, on these picks. So I'm kind of excited for you. You ready, my man?
Absolutely.
All right. All odds are provided. Here we go.
Let's turn it up. It's Jake's Prime Predictions. Vikings and Eagles.
Well, I know that, week one, with how things shaped up for both teams, both of them, of course, didn't really look exactly like themselves. But here's what I will say about it. I'm going to take the Vikings here with the points at +6.5. So it ended up changing at this point from a 7 to a 6.5. So it gives me a little bit of a half pointer from there. Here's my thing about it. The Eagles have a really, really good defense, and they are at home. I do suspect they will end up winning this game. The Vikings, by the way, they faced off against some real good defenses. They faced off against Tampa Bay's defense. They were limited to only 17 points. That's with Jordan Addison. That's with Justin Jefferson. And they are without Dalvin Cook. So my thought is you're going in this week with another tough defense. Now, by the way, there are some injuries. I've heard Nakobe Dean is listed as questionable for this week. I don't know if he'll end up playing, but they still got Nolan Smith, the rookie. And there still is, some real good secondaries that you got up here that Philadelphia has been really, really good with. I thought defensively, they've played really good. They've gotten so many pressures. By the way, Jalen Carter had 6 pressures last week against New England. So I think Kirk Cousins still probably won't even find that groove, but he will be better. But I do think I'm going to take the 6.5 points, but Philadelphia will win this game 27-24.
Colts and Texans.
The cold syrup in this one. Now, I know that Anthony Richardson may be questionable, but I think he will be fine with that bruised knee. My thought was with the Colts, their offense looked really, really good. 21 points, at least in his rookie debut. Anthony Richardson clearly looks like the real deal. He's popped. He's showed up some good rushes. And plus, he's pretty accurate. And Shane Steichen, who loves young quarterbacks, you're going into another young quarterback prospect in C.J. Stroud. And the one thing I look at with rookie head coaches and DeMeco Ryans, I think that with defensively, Houston played a real damn good defensive game against Baltimore, but it wasn't enough for them to score up the points. I think they will do it again, but I do think Indianapolis, because of the way Anthony Richardson and how they work that offense, they will play better. It's probably going to be a little bit more of a rookie showcase on both ends. I'll take the Colts to win 24-20 with that -1.
Bears and Buccaneers.
Oh, wait. Wrong one from there. Sorry about that. I got to end up finding it. Apparently it didn't end up getting posted, but all right. I'm going to take the Lions here, which is Seattle against Detroit. I think this one is going to be a very interesting matchup, to say the least, because, first of all, the Lions are coming off of an emotional win against Kansas City on the road in Thursday night. They're facing off against Seattle, where Geno Smith didn't look like his best. Here's a few pointers to kind of keep. I'm going to go with Detroit at -5.5. Offensively, Ben Johnson was really, really good at situational football, and I thought they played to the best of their strengths. Jahmyr Gibbs looked really, really good. It's a young defense, young offense as well for Seattle outside of Geno Smith. I think the Lions really do pan out and play well at home, which is the best comfort. It's different if you were on the road in Seattle and you had to get another go-around to play better. But I think in this one in Detroit, the Lions look like they're very comfortable. I'll take them to win 27-21 at Ford Field.
Bears at Buccaneers.
The Bears and the Buccaneers game, so I'm going to take the Bucs at -2.5. Here's my reason for this. I don't know if Chicago really figured out the problem. I thought defensively they were not as, consistent, and we didn't think that there was much of a change. Yes, they got Tremaine Edmonds. Yes, they got a bunch of players up on defense, but all throughout it, Green Bay was smart. And I thought, honestly, because of the way Tampa played, Tampa was playing with some ground and pound. And I thought that the Buccaneers really had a real good showing on the road in Minneapolis. And I thought it was a really good look from there. But I'll take the Buccaneers at home. Baker Mayfield's really feeling himself. I don't think it'll be as pretty because I do think that the defense will show up for Chicago. But at least with 2.5 points, I'm going to take the Bucs to win 24-20 over the Bears.
Packers at Falcons.
Bay and Jordan Love looked really, really impressive. I'm taking the Packers on the road at -1. Look, it's one thing that if you got 4 or 5 points, which they don't, I would have taken the points with Atlanta. But because it's only 1 point, what it's telling you is usually in an odd NFC game like this between Atlanta and Green Bay was really good on their offensive line. I don't know how Atlanta will really pan out defensively, even though defensively they look really, really good. They had a lot of really good stops. Desmond Ridder, though, by the way, he's facing off against Jair Alexander and Rasul Douglas in the secondary, and he didn't really distribute the football that often to Kyle Pitts and to Drake London. That is something to really look out for. I'm going to take the Packers here in this one, but I do think because of both defenses and how they played, it's really going to end up being a close game, but give me 3 points off that 1 point. Green Bay wins in Atlanta on the road 27-24.
Ravens at Bengals.
Ravens plus 3.5. The only reason of it is because it's back-to-back weeks where Cincinnati is facing off against AFC North opponents. They didn't play well against Cleveland, and I don't think they're going to have that kind of field day against the Ravens. It will be interesting to watch both of them play because I love Joe Burrow and I love Lamar Jackson. Even Lamar Jackson had some struggles of his own. The run game's going to be different because J.K. Dobbins is hurt. But I thought offensively they played real well and they played okay, but defensively they really had some big-time stops. You have got a pass rush of Cleveland that Joe Burrow has faced, and they feasted on him. I think Baltimore literally kind of comes out a little bit of the same, even though that there were some key injuries to it. I think it'll be close enough of a game, but Baltimore comes away with a win here on the road, 28-27. 3.5 points is all I need to keep that game close.
Chiefs at Jaguars.
Taking the Jaguars plus 3.5. I loved with what I saw from Trevor Lawrence. And by the way, Kansas City is young all the way around, defensively and offensively. Outside of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, who am I trusting with that wide receiving core? Kadarius Toney looked terrible. 3 drop passes. And by the way, Trevor Lawrence, even with Indianapolis that played them with only about 10 points, they looked pretty impressive with Calvin Ridley. I'm going to see the same similar thing because I do think Calvin Ridley really did look impressive. I'll take Jacksonville with the 3.5 points, and it would be one thing if they were in Kansas City, but they are in Jacksonville. They're comfortable up at home. Give me the Jags to win 28-27 over the Chiefs.
Chargers at Titans.
Chargers, because here's the thing about it. They're giving them another chance of at least 3 points. I will take it. Tennessee's offense looked pretty flat last week against New Orleans. but defensively, they kept New Orleans to about 17 points. I don't think that's going to happen with an offense like the Chargers do have it. They get at least a break because opposing offense, they were too Derrick Henry reliant. So that was where I thought Ryan Tannehill didn't really look exactly that sharp, but I do think that's a point where you really have to adjust that defense for the Chargers. I'll take them to win here 27-23 on the road because they're pissed and they want to make up for that mistake that they had over the weekend, and I do think that they will be a lot better. All right, apparently that didn't end up coming up, but I'm going to take the Raiders over Buffalo with the points at -9.5. This is where I kind of came down to it. Jimmy Garoppolo, very impressive in his Raider debut, and he was smart at a lot of his passes. The one thing that I looked at with this is that the Raiders, they were trying to eliminate a lot of mistakes, and against a tough defense in Denver on the road, Jimmy Garoppolo made a lot of quality, good throws. I thought it was pretty impressive from there. Buffalo clearly didn't look like the same offense that we were used to seeing from there, but I think that Buffalo, they will shape themselves up. They're back at home. They'll be a lot better. But 9.5 points after an embarrassment on Monday Night Football? Come on. Let's be realistic from here. I'll take the Raiders 9.5 with Buffalo winning 24-21. Give me those 9.5 points.
49ers at Rams.
After a dominant performance from the Niners, I'm going to take them at 8 points. I thought, honestly, the defense looked so good, and they're facing off against the Rams on the road in LA. And listen, Matt Stafford looked really, really good, but he's not going to have a performance like that with these young cats. I think San Francisco, their defense is really set. Brock Purdy was very efficient on offense. They were able to distribute the football. Brandon Ayuk had a really good week, and so did Christian McCaffrey. I don't think the Rams have any answers to San Francisco, and clearly with a better record over Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan knows how to run this team. I'm going to take the 49ers to win this over the Rams, 30-20. 8 points is all I need there to cover that.
Giants at Cardinals.
The Cardinals, even though it looked like it was an ugly game and the Giants had it even uglier against Dallas, I'm going to take the Giants -5.5. Here's the tendency that always happens. Teams that get embarrassed in 1 week like that, usually the next week they bounce back. Brian Daboll is a very smart coach who knows how to adjust this offense. They couldn't figure anything out with the wide receiving room being so thin as it was. But I do think that Brian Daboll makes a lot of changes with this offense. Defensively, by the way, they couldn't even make any stops against a conservative Cowboys offense. I think the Giants come back here in a commanding way. And at -5.5, I'll take them to win. Defense gets pissed off, and they play a lot better with Kayvon Thibodeau and company. 24-17 on the road in Arizona.
Jets and Cowboys.
A lot of people are thinking, the Cowboys offense was really, really good. Evan, you're not going to face that against a really good premier defense in the Jets. I'll take them at +9.5. Here's the thing about what Robert Saleh did very, very well. They were against all odds and the adversity. Aaron Rodgers goes down, in comes Zach Wilson. All he had to do was just distribute the football and let the defense and the special teams do the rest of the work. Dallas had every part of the Giants' number. They're 11-1 against the Giants in the last couple of meetups. And the thing about the Jets, they held Buffalo to about 16 points. So if you think Dallas is going to feast on the Jets defense, you are sorely wrong. Sauce Gardner against CeeDee Lamb and a couple of, some really good secondaries. Look, I think the Cowboys will win this game, but it's not going to be a feast of 9.5. I'll take the points. Dallas wins in this close game, 24-20, reasonably at home.
Dolphins at Patriots.
Oh, looks like they didn't end up. Oh, there they go.
Commanders at Broncos.
And we had to make sure that we got the right one. I saw after that performance from the Broncos, I'm going to take the Commanders at +3.5. It doesn't look like that, Russell Wilson really reshaped himself. I know Sean Payton is really trying to fix this up, but this is just right now, the offense doesn't really look as good. I think part of that is you just didn't really have a whole lot that you were really looking at from this offense. Seriously. I thought, honestly, there was a bunch of those plays that really didn't look as good, and I thought through a lot of those points, Denver had multiple opportunities. And by the way, the Commanders, they won, but they didn't win pretty. But I thought that Sam Howell exactly made the throws that he needed to. I think Denver wins this game, but it's very, very close. I think that in some of those spurts, I think, you really have to kind of consider all things that you need to for this game to really, really work. So I'll take Washington's points, but Denver wins 24-23.
Dolphins and Patriots.
So the Dolphins, they looked really, really good up on offense. I'll take the -3. This was not something that I think that, that honestly, that I thought that the Dolphins were going to honestly play that big into that game. But clearly they did. And I thought, honestly, this is all part of Mike McDaniel's offense where he really got it working. And I thought it worked out perfectly. But you are facing off against a really, really good defense in New England. And by the way, they kept themselves close up into this game. Only about 5 points that they were down. I honestly thought that, it was, something that they really benefited from. So I think that in all of these cases and in all these odds, I think that the Dolphins will win this game, but I don't think they're going to have a game like they did in the past week. I think it's going to be reasonably fair, and I think that they are really going to end up showing up situational defense. I'll take Miami to win 24-17.
Saints and Panthers.
We got 2 doubleheaders now for Monday night, and I'm going to take the first game of it. I'll take the Saints -3. Here's the thing about it. Derek Carr definitely won in an emotional game at home and his home debut. And I thought that there were some things that they needed to clean up, but I thought they looked pretty good. Dennis Allen, I know, the defense looked really, really solid. They're going at it again, but this time it's an NFC South rivalry matchup against the Panthers. Now, we know Bryce Young, rookie quarterback, had at least a couple of some stuff that didn't really look as great. And, again, this is a young team. There's a lot of optimism you can look at for the Panthers. But again, I thought the Saints looked really, really good defensively. Offense, they could clean some stuff up. But I think Derek Carr, he's got some confidence that he's walking into for Monday night here for this up-and-coming week. I'll take the Saints with the -3, and I think they're going to win this one close in Charlotte, 24-20 against the Panthers.
Browns and Steelers.
The Monday night game that I think is going to be very, very interesting. Kenny Pickett did not look great, and I thought the Browns did really, really well on their pass rush. I'll take the Browns at -2.5. I think Pittsburgh really does rebound, but after what I've seen from just their connection and all of the rest of it, I don't know if Matt Canada is really just the guy that, offensively, that their coordinating is really that great. I thought Kenny Pickett had some good stuff, but again, he was roughed up. He was clearly, in and out of himself. And I think against that Browns pass rush, you're going in from double whammy of pass rushes from San Francisco's to Cleveland's. And I think the Browns really do end up playing well. I will take them on the road to win in Pittsburgh in this matchup. I'll take them to win 27-23 to cap off the doubleheader on a Monday night. And that's where I think the predictions are going to definitely set forth from here. Whew, all right. I thought all the picks were very, very impressive up on this one. Again, I thought that throughout all of this, these were a bunch of dogs from up over here. So as I've said, the dogs I got, Vikings 6.5. The the Ravens 3.5, Jags at 3.5, Raiders 9.5, and and the Commanders 3.5. I think reasonably when you look at this, Taylor, I think this is going to be one. The dogs are barking. There really are, I usually, like I said, certain teams that get embarrassed from the previous week often rebound back the next week. I think the Chargers rebound this week because the fact of they're not facing a premier offense like what Miami brought. I thought Tennessee looked flat, didn't really look all that great. So this is an opportunity for them to clean themselves up. Same thing I can say for the Giants. They didn't really look that great offensively, but you're getting you're kind of getting a pass with Arizona. Play it the best way possible. But again, I just thought after Buffalo's performance, I don't trust that 9.5. That's too much for me. If it was 5 or maybe 4.5, I'll reconsider. But after you just got embarrassed in Monday Night Football, that is very difficult for me to really kind of trust that kind of coin flip.
I totally get what you're saying. I'm not going to go through my entire list. I'm going to go through the ones that counteract what you have to say, because I think that that's just a little bit quicker way of doing things. Like you said, you have the Bills not covering. I have the Bills covering. Look, just like you said, they got embarrassed on Monday Night Football. And I think that this is a big place where they can bounce back and they can beat the Raiders by a substantial margin, right? Look, the Raiders aren't that great of a team. The Bills have shown that they really can be. And what did the Raiders put up this last week? I think they put up like 21 or something.
Points.
17. Yeah, they put up 17 and they won, right? And I would consider the Broncos defense to be worse than the Bills in terms of secondary. So I feel like this is a place where the Bills can really get back on track. I still trust their offense. The Jets defense is disgusting. It's also a division rival. It's a lot different game. It's the first game of the season. I think that Josh Allen could really bounce back in this one. So I have the Bills minus 9.5. It's a lot of points. I think that they do it. The next one that I have is the Eagles -7. Currently, the line's at 6.5. Look, I like the Eagles to beat this team by a touchdown. They didn't beat the Patriots by a touchdown, but guess what? The Patriots have a way better defense than this team, like vastly better defense. The Vikings have never had a great defense for the last, 3 years. So I don't expect them to hold up any type of defense to the Eagles. I have the Eagles winning 32-24. I think that it's going to be a fun one to watch, but I think that the Eagles are going to take it by a large margin.
All right.
The next one that I have is the Cowboys. Look, I get it. It was 40-0. Everybody's on the Cowboys. They love them. Yep. I really like them in this game. All right. The Cowboys are going up against the Jets. The Jets don't have a quarterback. Zach Wilson has to go against this defense. The Giants just proved with a proven Danny Dimes, they couldn't get it done. Yep. Do you think that Zach Wilson is going to get it done against this defense? I honestly think that this could be a super low-scoring game, and if I see where the under's at, I would probably bet the under. But I think that the Cowboys will be able to cover. So I think that they win 21-10. I just don't see how the Jets can move the ball in this game. If the Giants couldn't, I have no idea why the Jets would be able to. I think those are the only ones that we disagreed on. And I love all of your picks. Regardless, and I really like the Ravens in this next week plus 3.5. I really like them here.
Yeah, because I honestly do think that the Ravens, they're going to clean themselves up offensively, because I know that there was a couple of, some bobbles, a little bit of some miscues. But what I do see is that I think the Bengals, even if they start 0-2, if I get a cleaner matchup where they look better with Joe Burrow, then okay, they will find their momentum. And usually a lot of teams that go on runs like that is because they had hard starts to the season. So I think that, the Ravens, They've had it, they're banged up at running back. They got a couple of some injuries, at least a couple of some defensive guys, but not as bad to where they can still play well. But I just think that with that Cincinnati defense, they lost some guys. So that's why I think, that they'll put up a fight, they'll be better. But here's my takeaway with this, with the Raiders is even though, yes, you are coming away from a Jets defense, but all I know is that think about it this way. Yes, it was Sean Payton's first game as a Bronco coach. And I know that he with dealing with Russell Wilson because he's so he's so polished as a quarterback. I mean, it was very hard to really kind of narrow down that communication. But here's another thing. Josh Allen didn't look the same. He kind of looked like there was some plays he should have played better at. I'm not saying Ken Dorsey, is a terrible offensive coordinator, but I do think that there's some things he brings to the table than what Brian Daboll brought even more. So that's why I think, Buffalo, they'll win this game. But I just think that with 9.5, that's a bit of a coin flip. And then that's the same thing I say about Dallas. Because here's the point of it. I understand it's Zach Wilson, and you're probably not going to end up moving or distributing the football. But I know one thing. The Cowboys are going to be coming across Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. So it ain't just a Saquon, and then, you got a third-string runner. You got now duo running backs where they could utilize. They probably will end up running the football more often because they know with what Zach Wilson's limitations are. But the thing about Dallas is that they played a Giants defense that was not prepared. And so the Jets, they were prepared in that emotional game against Buffalo. So that's why I think Dak, as much as we love the performance they played, you're telling me you're going to take CeeDee Lamb over Sauce Gardner? That's going to be pretty tough. And then, you got a couple of other, I thought there was actually some pretty good corners that were played up very well for the Jets. I mean, they were able to kind of give a little bit of some fits to Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. That's why I'm like, I think that's where it's cutting it close. And you may be right. You may be right that point spread might be pretty low. I look at that game and I almost want to say, because of those points, I think it could get a little ugly. I just think it could. There's a possibility that game could get pretty ugly pretty quick.
Oh, it will. It's going to be an absolute slugfest in terms of defense for sure. But that's why I have the Cowboys only scoring 20 points. So 20 points isn't a lot. It's four more than the Bills, and you have to realize that the Bills scored 16 while throwing 3 interceptions. So if Dak could just not do that, I think that they could put up 20 points, and the defense is far good enough to stop anything. Look, I love Breece Hall. I love him. I think he's great. I love Dalvin Cook. But if you're telling me that the Cowboys defense has to pretty much just play one-dimensionally, because that Zach Wilson is not going to be heaving that ball all over the place all crazy.
Yeah.
Because outside of Garrett Wilson, who do they have? They don't have anybody else other than Garrett Wilson. So you lock him down and the whole thing gets one-dimensional. I just like them to not score more than 10 points.
Yeah. No, it might be interesting. And like I said, I mean, you may be right, but we'll see what happens, on Sunday. I think it'll be, like I said, I just think that there's points where I think it could very much get ugly quick. But again, usually games like this, it depends on where is the pendulum going to swing. If it really does
the momentum,
yeah. And so that's where I'm like, okay, I can kind of see it go this way. But, like I said, you never know. It's any given Sunday. It's unpredictable, but we'll see what happens here from week 2. But I think these are going to be great.
Do you happen to have a super lock?
Oh, I think my super lock pick, what I really like, I like that Jags 3.5. I think that's my super lock. Yeah, because I think I just think because of the wide receiving room, Kadarius Toney looked bad. Do I think he looks like that again? Maybe not. But Calvin Ridley, man, looked
He was a
so
monster.
he looked so good against the Colts. That's why I'm like, I think that in itself, between two premier quarterbacks, I'll take it. I think it looks really good.
I like it. My super lock for this week is going to be taking the Packers over the Falcons
Oh,
for
yeah.
1.5. I think that is a. I just think that's a juicy matchup. I think 2 points. That's all the Packers have to beat the Falcons by. I think that they got that in the bag.
Yeah. Oh, that's gonna be really good. Jordan Love looked great. Jordan Love looked
Yeah,
really, really good.
look great.
All right, folks. Well, that's gonna end up doing it here for Up On the Show with Taylor and I. We appreciate you guys all for joining us here up on the show and hanging out with us. Like we said before, if it's your first time ever, like, follow, subscribe, and hit the bell button for all latest notifications to keep you up on future and past shows. For Taylor and I, live in Las Vegas, see y'all soon, and we'll see you next Tuesday on the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. We'll see you guys around.
Have a good one, guys.